The topic, I'm going first of all to analyze it as usual. We'll do analysis. We are in this particular topic using the work of an expert, or you can refer to this one using the work of an audit expert. That is the work. So the reason why I'm saying we are still in the audit evidence is because when we are collecting evidence and perhaps the matter becomes so complicated, we need to go for an expert. The expert is going to give us maybe more idea and understanding of that particular item that we are auditing. So here we are going to be looking on a number of things. One of them is this definition of the term expert. We have two experts that we are going to be defining. One of the experts is what we refer to as auditor's expert. Auditor's expert. And the other expert that we are going to be defining is management experts. Both of them, they almost have the same definition, even though their use is different. So we are going also to define what is management experts. Having covered that, we'll also introduce expertise. That term, we need to know exactly what do we mean by the word expertise. And having defined expertise, we need also to look on factors to consider before using the work of an expert. Before using an expert. In this lesson, we'll also look on the need to use the work of an expert. The need, these are factors to consider, but there is that thing we call the need to use the work of an expert. Need to use an expert. So welcome to this lesson. So when we look on the definition, when we bring the term expertise, first of all we say it is the knowledge and what? And skills in other fields. Or we can say in fields other than auditing and accounting. In fields other than auditing and accounting. Let me delete this part and say in fields other than auditing and accounting. That's what we mean by the word expertise or expert. So if you are an auditor, you are not an expert in your own field. You are an expert in your own field. But there are so many areas where you are not an expert. And so you may need to use someone else who maybe is knowledgeable in that particular area. So when we introduce the term auditor's expert, we use this for definition purposes. We say any person or organization that possesses what? Knowledge and skills in fields other than auditing and accounting, and whose work is going to be used by an auditor to gather audit evidence. So let's try to define that term. I'm trying to define auditor's expert. We say it is any person, and that person is doing what? Possessing what? Knowledge and skill. Knowledge and skills in fields other than auditing and accounting and whose work will be used by an auditor in forming a conclusion or as a basis of forming a conclusion, and whose work will be used by an auditor as a basis of forming a conclusion. Basis of forming a conclusion. It's a very simple definition. So you say, I'm an auditor. What do I know? I know auditing and accounting. But there is someone else who knows maybe other things different from auditing and accounting. Or there is a person who does not know auditing and accounting but possess knowledge in other fields. That's why we are going to be referring him as an auditor, an audit expert. So auditor's expert, their work is solely or exclusively used by an auditor in forming a conclusion by that particular auditor. But to differentiate between an auditor's expert and management experts, the difference is just one simple definition. In this definition, this one is an auditor's expert. An auditor's expert, meaning what? If I have my audit firm, that is my audit firm, and the management have their company, ABC Limited, that is the company, the auditor may employ his own expert, and the management may have their own expert. So there is a management expert whose work is going to be used by the management, and then there is an auditor's expert whose work is going to be used by an auditor. That's the only difference. But the definition will still remain the same. Let's try the definition of the management expert. When we are defining the management expert, we say management expert means any person, a person, again we follow the same definition, a person possessing knowledge and skills, possessing knowledge and skills in fields other than auditing and accounting, auditing and accounting. You see, to that extent, the definition is the same. A person possessing knowledge and skills in fields other than auditing and accounting, and whose work, this is where we have the differences, is used by management to prepare financial statement and accounts, to prepare financial statements and accounts. It's just that simple. So the auditor's expert work is used in auditing. The management expert's work is used in preparing the financial statement. This one should go back to remind you that the responsibility of the management is preparing the financial statement. The responsibility of the auditor is to gather evidence and form a conclusion on the financial statement. So if we are using an expert in auditing, we have employed our own expert who is going to be part of the engagement team to go ahead and help us collect evidence and form conclusions. Then we are going to be referring him as auditor's expert. If the management, on the other hand, they are going to have their own expert who is going to be collecting knowledge and maybe information in other fields other than auditing and accounting to help them prepare financial statement, that expert is going to be referred to as management experts. That is the differences between the two. I repeat, an auditor's expert is used for auditing purposes. A management expert is used to help the management prepare the financial statement of the company. And I'm done with that definition. Perhaps I should eliminate this area of definitions of the management expert and remain with that particular terminology or that particular explanation or phrase. The first phrase that we have started up with here was, what is expertise? What is expertise? Expertise, we have said, it is what? If there is knowledge and skills in fields other than auditing and accounting. So you can say expert means knowledge and skills in other fields. Knowledge and skills in other fields. But when we talk about expertise in auditing, we, for definition purposes, we use the same definition. We say expertise in auditing means knowledge and skills in fields other than auditing and accounting. But now, which fields are these? Fields that we are talking about here. There are so many fields whereby an auditor can request the expert to appear and assist them. And I know you know so much of those particular fields. You can guess them because you know exactly what valuation entails. Valuation of assets. So when you're doing the valuation of assets, especially fixed asset, intangible assets, and intangible assets, all those ones we need an expert. Maybe we are going to refer him as what? A valuer. But we can say the field number one is in valuation. Valuation of assets. And you can bring all manners of assets, including perhaps valuation of liabilities, because there are certain liabilities that we need to go ahead and note maybe the difference, their value. Valuation of assets and liabilities, for example, tangible non-current assets. Tangible non-current assets, we need a what? An expert. We also need an expert in things like what? Artifacts. We need an expert in, for example, issues relating to assets, fixed assets like machineries. We need an expert in valuation of work of arts. Work of arts, for example, in a gallery. If you are auditing a gallery and you want to know exactly what is the value of that particular art, then you need a valuer. So that part here, we can say the expert in that field is called who? A valuer. But the expertise area or field is valuation of assets. Number two, we can bring another part of the valuation. We can talk about actuarial valuation. Actuarial valuation. You know this particular term. Perhaps you have heard of it, because we say whenever we are doing insurance claims, we need an actuarial valuations. Whenever we have pension schemes and we have what we refer to as provident schemes, we need someone called an actuarial valuation. An actuarial valuation is an expert who can go ahead and tell us perhaps what is a claim for a particular life assurance or insurance company. And in that case, we can be able to know how much is supposed to be appearing in the financial statement and supposed to be provided for and whether it is accurate. There are those people who helps you in the interpretation of laws and regulations. Some people call them lawyers. It's the same. We can also call them legal officers or legal counsel. But lawyers will help you in the interpretation. Interpretation of laws, regulations, and contracts. So maybe there is a contract and you don't understand the terms of that contract, or maybe the terms that have been used you have never come across. Then you need a lawyer who is going to interpret each and every term for you and is going to help you to determine whether that contract was valid or maybe whether it's supposed to be maybe considered whenever you are forming an opinion. Whenever we go to the environment, especially when we are doing what we call environmental audit, there is something called environmental matter, violation of environmental laws and regulations. Then we need someone who is going to help us to determine the environmental liability. For example, if you damage the environment, there is a cost that is going to be incurred to maybe reinstate that environment to its original state. So that is called environmental liabilities. The person who is going to help you to determine the environmental liabilities, together with what we refer to as site cleanup, because we need to clean that particular site that we have maybe polluted. The cost that we are going to incur and maybe the restoration cost that we are going to incur is supposed to be determined by someone who is an expert. So we say environmental liabilities and site cleanup cost. Site cleanup cost. This is supposed to be determined also by what? By an expert. Now we have 4 points. We can still add 2 more, and we can start with number 5 here. We can say those matters associated with tax. There are so many people who think that issues relating to tax are easier to go ahead and be determined. Tax is not an easy area. It is a difficult area, and therefore you need that particular person who is going to help you on tax matters. So we say interpretation of tax act. Interpretation of tax act and provisions. and provisions. Even though most of the accountants, they know more about what? The accounting for taxation and filing of returns, but there is that particular law that governs the tax that we may not be having an idea and which we need an expert. The last part here that we are going to be bringing is a case of oil and gas exploration. So if you need someone who is going to help you determine the natural gas that is contained within a particular deposit, for example, when you're auditing those mining companies, or maybe those companies that are dealing with cement as their product, then you need to know exactly how much are they valuing their land which is containing those particular mine. So this one is called an expert in oil and gas exploration, or we can say in mining, oil and gas exploration. Mining, comma, oil and gas exploration. Explorations. We can also put the word and reserves. And reserves. So those are the experts that the auditor is supposed to be using. This one is in accordance with the standard. The standard that I'm using as the authoritative standard is ISA. This is supposed to be ISA 610, using the work of an expert. If you go to that particular standard, you realize that whenever we are collecting information about the mine deposits, oil and gas deposits, explorations and reserves, then we need an expert.
Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to get yourself a copy of our professionally prepared study text and revision partners. Visit our shop along Tom Boyer Street, Pioneer House, 3rd floor, opposite Fire Station.